Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Sports for the launch, the debut and the first iteration of Maul and Disorder, which working logo, this might change, but it's going to do it for now. And I'm joined this evening by Mr. Allister de Block, who you might have seen a few weeks ago on the watch along. And here's me, my guest tonight, as we talk everything rugby here on Forever Sports. We used to have the fan forum. We are now going to be launching this show called Maul and Disorder, happening every Thursday on live on Forever Sports, and hopefully bring some cool guests to the plan and to basically chat about the rugby, preview weekends, do some predictions, the whole likes of that, and to bring you guys even more content. Allister, how are you?
It's a pleasure to be here, Steve. I'm good, thanks. And self?
Yeah, can't complain. Well, I can complain because there's no Springbok rugby once again this weekend. We had nothing last weekend. We had nothing the weekend before. And, I've got like the shakes, really. I've got something with a bit of withdrawal. And the problem is there's no British and Irish Lions this weekend either. So we're definitely sort of skimping on a bit of a rugby. So coming up on the show, we're going to be talking about the British and Irish Lions and, the whole controversy surrounding were they robbed, for example. We'll be talking a little bit about the clean-out from Dan Shear and the fact that he's received a 4-match ban. We're talking about the of the Lions in general and kind of what we thought about the tour. Also, there's some big news coming in. We were talking about Richie Mwanga coming back to New Zealand next year. We were talking about Australia scrapping the Ghetto law. Australia also announced their Rugby Championship squad. We're doing a little bit of a look into the Springboks for next week and sort of seeing what we might see from a team perspective. And we'll also be talking a little bit about the Curry Cup and the likes of that. So the question that I'm asking everybody in the chat is, do you think the Springboks are the favourites for the Rugby Championship? Go and vote in the poll and let us know what you think. Right, Al, let's get into it. British and Irish Lions says 2-1 in the end. A much closer series than we probably expected. The big question is, based on the call from Jack Morgan 2 weeks ago and some of the TMO decisions and refereeing, were the Lions robbed of the series?
The Lions robbed of the series.
I'm sorry, the Australia robbed of the series.
I mean, like, you say also, like, a bit closer than we thought. I honestly thought Australia was going to win it from the start. My rugby opinions aren't the best, but but yeah, look, I don't know if we can say they were robbed. That first game, British and Irish Lions, look, it was only an 8-point gap, but they were dominated, Australia, in that first game. Second game, Australia did play very well. Right at the end, I think, a 50-50 game. Goes down to the big moments, and the big teams generally do tend to do it, and the British and Irish Lions are, no one can never refute that, a big team. They came through at the right moment. 2-0 going into the last game. I don't think you could say they were robbed. People may disagree. But, yeah, Australia put up a good fight, particularly that second game, and then obviously winning the last game in the rain there in Sydney. I was happy that they did manage to get that win, but robbed, I think, is a bit of a stretch too far. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's fair. I mean, you can go look at the whole Jack Morgan clean out till the cars come home. On the watch along, I said as much as I wanted it to be an Australian win, so we can go into a decider in the final test and likes of that, I think that it was too good of a clean out. There's nothing else you could have done. In theory, everybody's now saying bringing up the letter of the law. I don't think the letter of the law clearly says that is a penalty. So I think the try does stand. But I think the main thing was it was a good series. Now, we'll talk a little bit about, I did a video about this and maybe we'll dive into it, because our favourite Bok hater, Matt Williams, was back on the podcast this week, and he spoke about the fact that this series reignited Lions rugby, given the disgraceful 2021 tour that we saw, which, given the fact that 2021 went to a decider, Morné Steyn kicking on, I think it was a 78-minute penalty to win it. I mean, you couldn't have asked much more. Yes, no fans, but let's just talk about the Lions as a concept. I mean, how much do you enjoy the tour? I mean, personally, I watch it and think 2029 in New Zealand, I've got to be there. Absolute bucket list thing. Watching the Lions fans and the travelling Red Army and the likes of that just really showed me how special the Lions are. What did you think of the series and the Lions as a concept? Obviously, this one with fans kind of showed us more what we missed out on in 2021. I mean, I had tickets to all 3 tests, the Lions game, the Bulls game, the whole spiel. But yeah, I mean, your thoughts on the British and Irish Lions as a concept and sort of what is the future of British and Irish Lions? Is it something worth doing? Or do you think some people are saying it's an old and archaic series?
Oh, who's saying that? They're wrong, man. It's so cool. It is such a cool concept. Also, it just shows the passion that the fans from that side of the world have. Like, I mean, look, I've always been a hater of rugby from the north. When it comes to World Cup time, when it comes to any sort of competition with them. But can't hate on how passionate their fans are and just how the Lions brings that northern fan base together as one.
I mean, I think 50,000 over the course of the tour, traveling fans.
That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, look, it's nice to earn your pounds and your euros and be able to fly over.
That would have been a very cheap tour if they were coming to South Africa. That's probably why they were so upset. They weren't even upset about missing the rugby. They were upset about missing the cheap beer.
Dude, yeah. Flip. I know it's an epic concept, and there's no time in the calendar for it, but it would be so cool if there could be something similar at the South, Rugby Championship type of situation, Australia, New Zealand, Boca and RGs putting it together. It's a dream, but the concept is cool. The fans traveling over, they really missed an opportunity back in 2021. It was heartbreaking that we had to watch through COVID on our screens in empty stadiums. Me personally, I was actually in Mozambique when that tour happened. But if the tour was here and happening and we were able to go, I'm pretty sure I would have skipped that holiday and been there. It's not a once in a lifetime thing, but it's a once in a life cycle type.
Yeah, once every 12 years. So exactly. I mean, I was in my prime. 24, 25 years old. Like I'd done the hops training for it. I mean, I said the next time it comes is now another 8 years, and I'm well into my 30s.
And the last time we were like grade 5, grade 6. Yeah. Now it was literally the prime time for it when it previously happened. But yeah, to answer your question, insane concept. I back it. It's not archaic. It's not outdated. It's super cool.
Yeah, I mean, I love invitational teams. They often don't win because and I think it demonstrates how important alignment is and how important it is to be able to have time together as a team and build as a team. So I think we've seen situations like a Barbarians, for example, that don't always get the results despite the players. World 15s, for example, not always getting the results because you need time. But I love an invitational team. That First Nations and Pacifica 15, which took the Lions, to the 78th, 79th minute. It is great. And they're saying that's an invitational team they'll want to do more of. So I love an invitational team concept. It's so interesting. I mean, again, if you had to have as you said, a sort of a Southern Hemisphere situation, you've got these players who you play against week in, week out, and you've got this rivalry against them, and now you have to play with them. You've got, the combinations you can have an Ali Savia playing next to a Sia Khaleesi or with the Peter Steph Toy, and you think of look, to be honest,
celebration.
If we put together a Southern Hemisphere side, it would be pretty impressive, to be honest. But speaking of Southern Hemisphere stuff, big news coming for the All Blacks fans, and I want to know what you guys think in the comments. By the way, please get any questions or the likes of that into the comments so that we can kind of answer them and go through them. But big news coming out of New Zealand today is Richie Mo'unga back in the mix. He has signed a 18-month deal. I mean, it's very weird to sort of be signing an 18-month deal. I'm surprised that sort of clubs hand out 18-month deals. But he signed an 18-month deal with New Zealand Rugby, with Crusaders, and with Canterbury.
I wonder why he's done that.
Yeah, with 18 months starting in mid-2026 and expiring in, I think, about October or November 2027. So,
remind me of the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, well, this is now the thing. So, I mean, I think this is what a move we always saw was going to come. It was always going to be. Even when he left and he was supposedly signing this, he was supposed to be signing a 3-year contract initially. So in theory, everybody said, well, his contract will expire a year before the World Cup and the whole thing. And will he come back? He has not cut it short by a year. First of all, I think nobody's going to doubt that Richie Mo'unga makes the All Blacks significantly stronger. The part I want to chat about is you're Scott Robertson, and you've now been working with a Bowden Barrett, Dan McKenzie, Stephen Perafita, for example. You've been looking at a whole bunch of different 10 options. You now think, in the back of your mind, you've now got somebody like Richie Mo'unga arriving next year, but you can't work with him yet. Does Richie Mo'unga stroll back in? Does Robertson plan about having him back? Or does he have to basically say, well, this is what I've got to work with now. I've got to go forward with these two. And then when Richie Mo'unga becomes available, do you think he becomes a shoo-in within that All Black side.
Look, it throws a spanner in the works, definitely. But a year from now is also a long time in the rugby world.
Yeah.
Look, who knows? There could be some youngster we've never even heard of that comes through the ranks and I don't want to say outranks him, but might be further ahead of him in the pecking order. But we don't know if that will happen. Look, we know how his caliber, it's super high, incredible player. I'm not sure he walks back into the starting 15, but of course he's going to be in and amongst the squad, and he will be a shoo-in for the World Cup. But whether he's going to be one of those, in the top 2 or top 3 choices for number 10, time will tell. And like I said, a year's a long time in the rugby world.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I was doing a video this week about the 2027 Rugby World Cup squad, and one of the comments said, based on previous squads, I said there's somebody who'll probably be in that squad that hasn't even made his debut yet. For the Box, for example. So I think it's a very good point from an All Blacks point of view. Look, I think All Blacks they're waiting for that number 10 to come through. David McKenzie seems to be kind of the man to be backed at the moment. Bowden Barrett's still playing very good rugby. But I think they're just waiting for that world-class number 10. I think they've got a good pack. But I think that world-class number 10 is kind of something that slightly eludes them. I think at the end of the day, you're a Springbok fan, and you see Richie Mo'unga in the team versus not seeing Richie Mo'unga in the team, you're probably more nervous when you see him in that side.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially like the kicking threat that he brings. You know that 9 times out of 10 he's going to be kicking it over from wherever it is in the field. So yeah, look, good for New Zealand rugby that he's going to be back in the mix. I don't envy Scott Robertson and the challenges he's going to have this time next year. But yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah, keen to see how it goes.
Yeah, it's in the comments. Nightcaller saying it's good for Richie, but shouldn't New Zealand be concentrating on their young talent? He will only be available from end of 2026. Yeah, I think that's the big sort of problem. I think even as the Springboks, we're looking at players who are potentially injured or players who are not quite available, and how much do you give that attention versus other players? Something like a Francois Herbert only available in January. How much do you now sit there saying, well, do we now need to put 10 caps into Asenati and Tlabakanya this year? Because if Francois Herbert doesn't make it to the World Cup, then we need to have other options. And I think that's probably the arm wrestle that Scott Robertson's currently having at the moment in terms of, at the moment I can bank on him being available next year. We don't know what form he's going to be in. He then gets an injury, for example, before the World Cup and doesn't go there. So it's a difficult thing to really hedge all your bets on a single player. But I think that obviously Kim coming back does boost those stocks. I mean, we saw Andre Pollard being parachuted into the World Cup in 2023.
Yeah.
Wasn't even part of the original squad and got the business done. So staying on the topic, and this is quite a nice sort of build-up to sort of go in before we talk about the Rugby Championship itself. Australia announced some pretty big news this week on the back of that lost series to the British and Irish Lions. They've now announced that effectively that Matt Giteau law, as it was known, has been scrapped, meaning that Australia and Joe Schmidt and then next year Les Kiss can pick anybody available for Australia, which means that your likes of Osama could really come back to the discussion. You've got your Pete Saunders, for example. You've got Will Skelton, came back and was phenomenal. Arguably best player on the pitch for the Wallabies over the last 2 weeks. Does this Matt Giteau scrapping of the law suddenly put this Wallaby side into contention come 2027?
Oh, I don't know if I'll go as far as putting them into contention to win the Rugby World Cup, but it's certainly going to put them further along this improvement line that they've been on. For example, if you look back a year ago, who would have thought that they would have competed against the Lions and actually got a 2-1 win, and it could have been 2-1 the other way to Australia. Right?
Yeah.
They clearly have been improving, but I don't know if the talent that they have overseas, which of course they do have pools of, but bringing it back, is it going to be enough to bring them in line with your Springboks, with your All Blacks, with your France? The French rugby team is insane, and that team that they're going to be taking to Australia in 2027 is, I'm scared of them. Australia, certainly, they're going to be improving. I think they might get themselves back up into top 4 or 5 teams in the world, but actually competing for the trophy, I don't think so.
And then your thoughts on the actual concept of New Zealand still have it. You don't play in New Zealand, you can't play for New Zealand. This was the law that crippled the Springboks.
Oh, yeah.
It was, we talk about Allister Coetzee, and I always feel really bad for Allister Coetzee because he came on the back of a 2015 World Cup where we were decent, but maybe not at our best. He then saw a whole bunch of players exiting South Africa. He was not allowed to pick his best team. He wasn't allowed to pick your Cheslin Colbys, for example, your Damien Day-Lendys at the time. And he didn't get the results. Rassie Erasmus came back in, and one part of the conditions of him coming back, and rightly so, was I need to be able to pick my best players.
Yeah.
Now, New Zealand have still said, no, not happening, which is why you see a sabbatical, for example, for Jordie Barrett, who's allowed to leave for a certain amount of months, but he comes back into the system. So because he came back, now he's available again. I think somebody else is doing, I think it's... Artie Sevilla obviously went to Pacifica, and I think next year the name skips me around, but somebody also is going back to Leinster to do a similar sort of sabbatical type of thing. Where do you sort of stand on the whole eligibility thing? Do you think that the All Blacks should be picking outside of New Zealand? I mean, that means that a Richie Mo'unga, for example, is available. He'd be available tomorrow if they decide to go sort of that route.
Yeah. Look. Obviously, there's validity to each side of the argument, but I think you're only hurting yourself if you're limiting the amount of players you can pick. Why would you limit your chances to have your best possible players playing just because you're trying to uplift, your local rugby structure? Of course, it's important, and we got to focus on grassroots and focus on making sure that your local rugby is at a high standard. But international rugby is the pinnacle.
Yeah.
You've got to make sure your best players are available at all times. And we saw how it hurt the Springboks, like you said. It was your dark times, man. 2016 through to 18, 19. I remember sitting at varsity watching the Boca lose to Italy. And
the 57-0. And
that was crazy. But having these rules in place where you can't choose your best players because they're playing overseas, unfairly limiting on yourself, on your coaches, on your fans. Nah, screw that. Pick your best players, man.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, you've got to be cognizant of the reality of the modern game. Playing in a top 14, playing in Japan is so financially rewarding for these players that they just can't not go to a certain degree. I mean, Richie Mo'unga said that he's going to set up his family. That's why he left. Obviously, it's slightly different in South Africa because we've got the rand, which is about 45 rand to the pound these days. It's just so weak. So therefore, it was so
6 now.
Yeah, literally. I'll never forget that test series of the Barmy Army, and every single time they're saying we've got 27 rand to the pound, and then we've got 28 rand to the pound. But we've got such a weak currency. Obviously, New Zealand are not quite in the same situation. They've got a much stronger currency, but they also cannot compete with the type of salaries that their top players get. Now, I think that there's two ways of looking at it. Now, South Africa's almost embraced the whole, all right, cool, we've lost our players, they've gone overseas, therefore we've now got an opportunity at our 4 main sides to develop lots more youngsters who might not have gotten the exposure. But again, it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation because, yes, you've got these new players who are now being exposed to this thing, but they're also now not having the experience of playing with Andre Pollard, who's now coming back to the Bulls next year. I mean, what he'll do for the development of younger players, for example. Kobus Ranos going to Stormers. So for example, you're sitting there as an Asad Mus, he's 21 years old, and now learning from a Kobus Ranach. That experience you get from playing with those sort of players is incredible. You look at the Sharks, for example. Now, yes, I don't think the Sharks have been a bit underwhelming, but training as a youngster, as something like a corner role at the Sharks, training every day with Evan Etzebeth, playing against him, running into him at training, the likes of that. You can't replace that kind of experience. So it's such a give and take situation because there's so many merits to both of it. I mean, we basically say, cool, let them go overseas. We can't afford them to pay them what they're worth.
Yeah.
But we can let Toulon pay Cheslin Colby stacks. Yeah. And when he comes in, he earns his 100,000 rand a match, for example, for the Springboks, he's going, what does it matter? I'm earning 20 million rand in my Toulon contract. So it's peanuts. So we very much leveraged the international. And same with Japan. I mean, Japan was so good for us because it allows our older players to go and earn bank, play less rugby at a level which is quicker. So I think they're a lot fitter. I mean, something like a Lua Diago looks a lot fitter. So I think it's one of those situations where if you can leverage it correctly, it becomes such a big tool to be able to have these players playing overseas.
Do you reckon Andre has come back thinking he's earned enough? I mean, I know he was like the highest paid player.
Yeah, well, I think you start missing home to a certain degree. I think he went to Montpellier, didn't really work out for him. I mean, at one stage, just before he left, he had a lot of injury issues. But at one stage, he was playing 12 or coming off the bench for Pollard got busy. So he wasn't even the first choice of Montpellier, and he was, at that stage, I think, the best player in the world. Then he went to Leicester Tigers. He played a lot better. Leicester Tigers was the starter for them, was a key player for them. But I think also, to a certain degree, he's now been overseas for...
You can only take English weather for so long.
Yeah, I think a lot of players now just they want to come back. Vilko Low came back. Obviously Sia went to Racing and decided that Paris was cuck and was back here within a year basically.
Fat and slow.
Yeah, yeah. And never helps. Rule number one as an owner: don't call your star player fat and slow, especially when he's probably the biggest name in rugby. But it's an interesting concept. I think and we have seen obviously the boost of salary, so now we can bring a 100 part back. But I think that there's so much merit you gain as a player going over and playing in the top 14 and playing in the Premiership and playing in Japan. I mean, I think that players... I think Jesse Creel, for example, is a better player for it. I think he's gone over there, he's honed a different side of him. I think certain players just get exposed to different styles of rugby. And I think the amount of IP that comes into that Springbok camp from John Klein, who's been involved in the Irish system for the last how many years. Arcus Neyman now playing in the Irish system.
You've pretty much playing with the Irish team.
Literally.
You go out and play against
literally.
Ireland.
That's the whole, talk about, Jacques Ninon about being a spy and working with Leinster for 2 years, and then he's going to be parachuted back to the box.
27, watch.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. We're kind of waiting for it, And I think there's so much value in that. The players coming from the top 14, understanding how the French do it, versus how the Japanese do it. And I think that it's so much more professional over here. That's the one thing a lot of these players said. They said the professionalism in the top 14. It's more like when you watch, if you're a big football fan, Premier League, the professionalism of the sports scientists, the facilities they have, the training regimes, the expectations of you as a player.
Money, which is why they're there, really.
Exactly, and I think you get exposed to that kind of environment, and then you come back and you can basically feed that in. Because I think if you go, we were at when I was at the World Cup, we were in Lyon, and Lyon's got a whole compound basically with the mat with the stadium, and it's the stadium over there, a couple of training fields. They've got a big store. They've got this big open area, which basically becomes a big pub and sort of party area on a Saturday. Yeah. But the whole gym, and they were busy building the whole new facility, which is going to have indoor facility in the whole thing. And we sat there going, you compare that to going to an Ellis Park, where you've got Ellis Park, and next you've got the Johannesburg Stadium, which is completely run down. Yeah. The indoor centre for the Lions is not terrible. They've got a whole little indoor centre with AstroTurf, stuff like that. But, it's you're comparing, it's not apples to apples. Yeah. It really is apples to oranges when you look at what we've got down here versus what they've got overseas. And I think that there's so much to learn when you players get exposed to that. They come back and they're saying, this is what's happening overseas. And that needs to start becoming the standard. I think we need to professionalize our unions a lot more. The fact we've only got 4 professional unions versus the top 14, which have 14, and a Pro D2.
Oh, the Pro D2 is also insane. The competition, I've heard from that, really, really.
And they bring in lots of Georgian players and the whole thing. So, we talk about the Currie Cup. We'll talk about it a bit later. But this, for me, is the biggest thing. You've got to find the money. And look, SA Rugby are bringing in 2 billion rand this year. I want to see what this newfound money is going to go into the South African system, because...
Does it help having, the Sharks new consortium owners?
Yeah, I think it does. In theory, there's obviously still wage caps. So there's still... it's an interesting thing, because there's wage caps with regards to salaries of players. But there's no massive financial regulations with regards to the money they can put into the club. They can go
privatized.
Yeah, they can go put money into the stadium. They can go put money into the advertising or grassroots levels and stuff like that. So the only caps at this stage is within the transfers. It's not like the Premier League, which, for example, now has had to bring in financial player play. But the problem obviously comes with then situations like the Premiership, which is where so many teams are not financially viable. And you've got teams, like the London Irish, which don't exist anymore, Wasps and stuff, all these teams which just cease to exist because they didn't have the financials. So, yeah, we probably do actually have to be mindful of that when we sort of expand in terms of making sure we don't overspend. But I would love to see more professionalism in rugby. And this all comes back from just talking about the overseas players and the exposure. Yeah. And I think that comes into even New Zealand rugby, is I think that they're missing out on the IP that you get from being exposed. Geordie Barrett was the best New Zealand player across that Test series, and he just been playing in Leinster, being in that environment, different conditions as well. You now go from playing in Super Rugby conditions to now playing in Ireland, for example. Look, New Zealand can be excruciatingly cold, but like an RKS name will be a much better player from having been exposed to those conditions, and he's also played at the Bulls, where he's played at altitude, and I think that is also the IP that New Zealand are missing out on. by not bringing those players
they're
back
limiting
in.
themselves. Like I said, you don't want to limit yourself. I mean, look, the New Zealand players, local talent that they have, it's insane. They're crazy. New Zealand are second best team in the world for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what they're on the rankings are. Are they second?
I think they're second, yeah.
But yeah, if you're not letting your best players go overseas and get that IP and generally make them better players all around, it only makes your country a better rugby playing country altogether. And well, we saw it. That didn't work for us. We scrapped it. Look, we're a whole lot better now.
Yeah, was also really large. We scrapped in 2018, and 7 years later, we've got 2 World Cups in the British and Irish Lions series.
And it goes back to the question you asked me earlier, like, will it let Australia compete for the Rugby World Cup? The fact that they've now scrapped Ghetto's law, I don't think so soon, but it's certainly going to see them improve a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a lot more of a competitive Rugby Championship now, which is so cool.
Well, I think the biggest problem is Australia are losing players to Rugby League, for example.
Oh, yeah.
You know, before we go into the championship. And it's money. That Australian Aussie rules is just, and the rugby league over there and the whole thing.
The religion.
Yeah, and the league is just, you get paid such big money, and that's why like a Joseph Suaalii coming across was so big. But I mean, Mark Nawangani-Tuwase was a phenomenal player, and they lost him to league. If he's going and playing in France, earning the stats he would be earning at league, and then coming back and playing for the Wallabies, that for me, and that's why I think the Wallabies was so silly, because I mean, Will Skelton is not going to come back play Super Rugby. He's earning bank at La Rochelle. But he's such a big player for them.
Yeah.
And let those people go out and earn the big money and then bring them in. I mean, Australia Rugby, I think, made a $60 million loss last year. And this year, with the British and Irish Lions series, they are forecasting a profit. But this is the thing. You talk about the fact you don't have the money. So instead of trying desperately to keep these players in Australia, let your senior, better players. And look, that's why they have the 30 cap rule and stuff like that, which I don't think really works. Even Wales have got a similar thing as well. They've also got the 30 cap rule. Because I think the problem is, is that it's not just your senior players in terms of I've played 4 or 5 years going over. It's your superstars. Somebody like a Sasha Palme-Gomezulu will have big money offers from overseas.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And he's 22 years old. So,
and he's going to take them one day.
Yeah, he will. Yeah, I think he will. I think he's quite a global. I think the personality. I think he's somebody who would like to go and play.
Check him at Toulouse.
Yeah, exactly. I think he'd love to play in the top 14. I think he suits the top 14 as well, or go and play at Bath, for example, and go to the Premiership or the likes of that, which I think you should be allowed to do. But I think that Australia shot themselves in the foot for many years, and I still think that New Zealand would be a better team should they allow those sort of players. Let's talk about the Rugby Championship. It finally gets going next week, and I think we're in for a proper. I think this could be my gut says this is going to be the best Rugby Championship we've had since sort of post-COVID, because we've got a South African side which looked a little bit undercooked against Italy and Georgia. Maybe not our best few games, but we're still the best team in the world, and everybody's sort of now accepting that. So we've kind of got that target on our back. We've got an All Black side which last year, especially towards the end of the year, started to look threatening. We've got an Argentinian side, which is looking, I mean, they didn't have a particularly good.
British and Irish Lions.
Yeah, and then, they lost to England, so that part maybe a bit of a setback there, but I do think there's a lot more Argentinian players to come in. I mean, Thomas Albanose last year was absolutely balling out. And I think now you've got a Wallaby side, which is looking competitive. I don't think the Wallabies are going to, I think it's still probably going to be Wallabies, Argentina fighting for that third, fourth, and I expect Argentina to take it.
But it'll be a fight, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that, I'm keen to see what Argentina do. I think that the inconsistency they bring in, I think that's something that Contaponi is really working hard on trying to remove. The fact that they go from being beating the Box the one week to losing to Italy the next week.
Well, they're going to beat New Zealand away, like they always do.
Yeah, they love a win in New Zealand. I mean, I think it was like 3 in 4 years or something like that. They love that. I mean, we must have been sitting there going, like,
how do you do it?
Literally, I mean, we were sitting there, haven't beaten them how many years, and Argentina were out there, Pablo Matera shopping masterclasses.
Yeah.
But I mean, this Rugby Championship, I mean, how do you see, I mean, for example, next week, you've got Springboks, Wallabies, and you've got New Zealand in Argentina. How are we, that's the start. I mean, how are we seeing this whole Rugby Championship, and what parts of the Rugby Championship are you looking forward to?
Oh, I mean, that's a simple answer. This is the All Blacks in Eden Park.
Yeah. I think it's 6th September. Put that in the calendar.
Yeah, it's 50 years, eh?
Something like that, yeah.
It's crazy that the All Blacks just haven't lost there. And, I mean, we've been hopping on since 2019 that this is the best book squad team of all time. And if there's any team that's going to do it, it has to be this one. I'm surprised the All Blacks scheduled a game at Eden Park with. I mean, maybe it's arrogant to say.
Well, I think yeah, it is fighting talk. It is fighting talk.
But away at Eden Park, it's huge.
Yeah,
it's huge. I'm frothing for that game. Of course, we've got 2 games against Australia at home first. We've got to look out for. I'm pretty sure we will win those. But that game away, and it's the first one as well. So if we can go win that, we'll be so pumped up for that second game too.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, I always said I think Eden Park is doable. I said I'd be surprised if we could do the double, because I think it's going to take such a monumental effort to win in Eden Park. I think being able to do it the next week is going to be a big look. But again, I mean, I said this since the last World Cup. I said we excused the lack of. We won the British and Irish Lions series, but we didn't win a Rugby Championship post-COVID before the 2020. And I said we can excuse that because it was COVID times. There were external factors which meant we couldn't really build. Between 2023 and 2027, we're talking about a generational Springboks side. And I said very blatantly, I don't want to get away from this. We can only win the World Cup, or we can focus on the World Cup. I want to win Rugby Championships.
Oh, yeah.
I want to beat New Zealand in Eden Park and win those sort of series. Next year, we've got the greatest rivalry tour. 3 test matches in South Africa against New Zealand. I mean, some people are sitting there saying, oh, no, but it's all about the World Cup. No.
It's not
beat New Zealand 2-1 next year. Imagine you whitewash them. Imagine whitewash. I mean, that is...
beat them in Eden Park.
Oh. Yeah, but those for me are up there with winning World Cups. Yeah. I mean, you think about...
what great teams are. Not good teams.
The Irish series win in New Zealand. I mean, that is historic.
Exactly.
In Irish rugby, that's probably their biggest achievement today. Until they win a World Cup.
So close to doing it as well, but just falling short.
But you ask the Ireland, what was bigger for them? Their Six Nations win this year, for example, or winning in New Zealand? They'll probably tell you that beating the All Blacks in New Zealand, winning that series, is probably a bigger achievement for them, more historical, definitely, than probably winning the Six Nations.
I would think so. Look, there might be some Irishmen watching that disagree. Beating England and all those other nations teams is huge, but New Zealand away,
it's
iconic.
It's exactly, and that's why I say I think I don't look at this year thinking, it's about building for the 2027 World Cup. I look at this year saying I want to win Eden Park and I want to win that Rugby Championship. And then end of the year, again, it's not about rotation. It's not about
win at the Stade de France.
I want to go back there to where it happened, to where I could hear the game happening. I was less than a kilometer away. I could hear the cheering. I want to go back there because those French were miserable after that game. They were miserable. I want to go back to Stade de France, literally. And I want to say that wasn't a once-off. That wasn't because you just know that is circled on their calendar. This year, as soon as they didn't win the Six Nations, they circled that and they said, we need to beat the Box.
And we've got a small game of away against Ireland.
Which we haven't won in Ireland since 20... I think it's like 20... It's been a long time, actually. We haven't won in Ireland in many years. So we've got to try and do that as well.
And it's a huge year.
I look at 15, potentially another test against Japan.
Yeah, in Brighton.
Yeah, literally. But in terms of the Rugby Championship, I mean, so King Power is saying, I don't know why, but I think the Boks are going to lose to Australia away in one of the New Zealand games. We're not playing against Australia away, so that's that. But I think that's an interesting point. I mean, some people. I was watching one of the podcasts, and they were saying they reckon if the Boks were playing in Australia, it could have been quite a close game. But obviously, playing in South Africa, you've got. I mean, especially at Ellis Park.
And we need to beware getting too big-headed about it, though. Look, Australia definitely on the rise. They gave the British and Irish Lions a run for their money, and that's a very good team. That British and Irish Lions team. Of course, like you said earlier, if they had more time to gel and be a team, they could be elite up there competing with the Springboks in New Zealand. But the fact that Australia gave them a run for their money, I think there's warning bells, and we can't be. We're not going to walk over them like we did last year. We're going to have to work for that.
We're going to have to be a lot better than we were a month ago, put it that way.
Oh, correct. Yeah, absolutely.
But I also think, it's a fine line between, getting big-headed, but also it's a certain amount of, we are the world champions, and there needs to be that ruthlessness. That was the iconic New Zealand side of 2015, 2014, 2016, they didn't lose. It didn't matter who you were, it didn't matter where you were playing. The expectation was we are the best team in the world and we're going to beat you. And that's what I'd love to see the Boks get, that sort of ruthlessness this year, where every single game is personal. Every single game is you're not going to win. we are going to do whatever we can to make sure we beat you. Because if we do go and beat New Zealand twice away, and an Ireland, and a France,
how can anyone dispute?
You can't, So the year is set up for it.
Some Englishmen that do, but
Yeah. And Matt Williams still complaining about the way we play and stuff like that. But with the Rugby Championship, Australia announced their squad today, and I thought maybe pick out a couple of players who are a bit of a worry for you and stuff like that. I mean, going through the squad, big names that have not made it in terms of injuries. There's no Alan Alatoa, who unfortunately his injury can't recover. There is no...
It's a bit sad about that one.
Yeah, correct. There's no Matt Fazer, no Jake Gordon, no Lolesio is not there, Tom Lynock, no Harry Potter, the Wizard is gone.
Oh, man.
So yeah, a couple of big names, but I mean, for me, there's still some big names if you look at this Australian squad that is coming. I thought Nick Frost had a good campaign. You've got your Angus Bells, though. You've got your Rob Valentinis, Will Skeltons, James Slipper, Tina Tupou is playing, Harry Wilson in the backs. You've got the likes of a
Max Jorgensen.
Yeah, I tell you, I mean, to be honest,
player.
I mean, you talk about the Australian squad. I mean, I think that pack's got some good players. I think that Will Skelton is class. I mean, I think that if we were to do a combined side, I would have no issue putting him in the number 5 jersey.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I mean,
James.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. James Slipper's all that experience. Rob Bellatini, phenomenal. Tina Tupou on his day. I tell you what, though, the Aussie wings last weekend. I mean, Max Jorgensen looks a proper player. The entire series, his finishing, his decision making, and then Dylan Peach just drops. I think on his third or fourth game in his career for the Wallabies. It was a sick game, and I mean, he honestly looked an absolute world beater. So I think that the Wallabies backline, and look, Nick White coming back. We'll talk about it in a minute. I think the Wallabies backline, if that pack can find some sort of parity, I think that head-to-head in the back line is going to be very, very interesting.
No, absolutely. And you know what? I think Nick White delaying his retirement is a masterstroke. I understand there's been injury concerns and all that, which is why he's actually there. But he has always had the ability to just get under the South African skins. You remember that little tap on the chin?
That's the thing. I mean, and he's going to absolutely... I mean, he knows he's going to get pulled on. Oh, yeah. I mean, I thought that was one of the best things that the Wallabies did in the second 2 games against the Lions. You brought in a Will Skelton, who is the number 1 shit stirrer in the world. You brought in Nick White in the last test, and they riled him up.
Yeah.
They got them, and this is why the Boks need to be very disciplined with those type of players, not to rise to it. Yeah. Not to do what Jasper Wiese did.
Exactly. That was so frustrating.
And that's the thing. That's exactly what the Wallabies are going to do. They're going to try and come and get under the Boks skin and try and create ill discipline, and it's going to really push the Boks. Because the problem is, when it comes to Test match rugby, because that's the point. People watch and they're like, why does Jasper Wiese rise to that? And it's so difficult to try and sort of explain that this is Test match rugby. You've got you hype yourselves before, and you sit there saying,
in the heat of the moment.
I mean, you've got Rassie Erasmus in Jason Hassan saying, you say you'll die for your country, but you won't die for your country. These are the type of levels that they're asking themselves to get to, and then you're then saying, when the little prat swears at you, says something about your family, has go at you, punch you, now you can't rise to that.
How can you not?
And that's the thing.
I get riled up playing 7th division cricket, man. Imagine these folks representing their
80,000 fans paying for blood. You grab somebody and the entire crowd is there. It's so difficult. But I think that is what the Australians are going to try and do. And I think we've got to... When on their day, they're the best at it. I mean, Will Skelton's phenomenal at doing it. Nick White, I mean, he's such an easy person not to like in terms of the dive and the whole thing. But I think he's a class rugby player to begin with. But I love the shit stirring.
Oh, absolutely. No, look, it annoys me when it happens against our boys.
Correct.
But when, the time has passed and I look back at that previous time when we were playing away in Australia and how he was absolutely shit stirring, you look back and it's just genius.
Yeah, it's prime scrum half behaviour. It's what Faf de Klerk used to do as well. I mean, he's done it before.
Laughing in Oak's faces.
Heights. Yeah. Correct. You're not a scrum half until you start doing that, and he is the master doing it. So I'm actually very bleak. I'm not going to be at Ellis Park. We obviously will be covering it, and we will have a man there. I won't be there, but I think we're in for a proper test. My question is, now we're focusing more specifically on the Springboks. What sort of team are we going to see? Are we going to see balls to the walls, a similar team to if it was a World Cup final, or do you see some rotation in the and if it's going to be rotation, which of these Aussie games would you rotate for?
I think first game. I mean, trying to predict what Rusty's going to do is like trying to catch smoke with your hands, man. It's very difficult to do. And I think one thing we need to always do is just trust the process that Rusty has. He's always 2 steps ahead. He's playing a game of chess. So predicting what he's going to do is tough. I mean, I never would have predicted the fact that he would have left Faf out the squad, left Mapimpi out. I was very surprised to see Chituka left out as well, given his performances against Italy and the Barbarians and Georgia as well. Like, it was... God, the rugby he's played recently has been insane. So I think we are going to see 2 very different teams in each game, though. Whether it's the stronger one first or second remains to be seen. But Rusty likes he schmucks a bit of a shuffle up.
Yeah.
Both teams are going to be strong. We've seen how deep the South African rugby talent depth goes. But we're definitely we're going to see some very different teams. I reckon Buenfence is going to have a go. Manus is going to get a go. Maybe with him, maybe not. Because, I mean, let's be real. It looks like Mbonambi, his time is pretty much up. I'm surprised Vincent Koch got a selection call.
Yeah, lots of people are talking about him.
Yeah, whether he goes to New Zealand also, we don't know.
It's an interesting point, because on that, we're having a very interesting debate, because I asked Rassi last week in the press conference, you now got an idea, you probably got an idea in your head which players are not going to make the next World Cup. Do you phase them out? Do you sit there and say, right, Vincent Koch, you're not making the next World Cup, you're in the squad? And Rassi basically spoke about the fact, it's like, well, who am I to cut their box career short just because they might not make the World Cup? So I think it's a very interesting that these days...
Well, I think it's written in the stars. We're not written in the stars. Like, it's a death warrant for folks like Vincent Koch then. Like, the way I interpret that, sorry to interrupt you, man, but like, you're saying, how am I to cut your career short? Like, for example, Vincent Koch, you can keep playing for now, but you're not going to Australia in 2020.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting, because I think basically what he's saying is that just because they're playing doesn't mean they're going to go.
Exactly.
You know. So as I say, and he said basically, even if they retire a year from the World Cup, that can happen. But basically, he's going to keep picking them until they're not good enough to play. So it's not a case of, well, we think you might not be good enough in 2 years' time, therefore we're going to stop picking you. So it's such a big balancing act.
But then will we see Mapim's Faf go to New Zealand?
Well, that's what some people say. I don't think... I'll be surprised when Mapim's goes to New Zealand. I think we'll see him against Argentina, personally.
Surely, yeah.
Faf, I'm very interested to see. I mean, I still think World Cup final tomorrow, he'd be in March 23. Whether he start or not, I mean, a certain part of me say that I would look at him starting, because I think in a World Cup final, in certain conditions, I think that there are so many different aspects to his game. To Grant Williams, for example, I think during the World Cup it really worked when Grant Williams was coming off the bench and sort of being that sort of impact player. These days, you kind of can't leave him out, though. But I still think something like a Faf de Klerk's got a big role to play in this box side.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love to see Monet van der Berg playing. He's very exciting. Grant Williams, electric. But the experience and the level head that Faf brings, can't beat it, man. So maybe he's just resting. I don't know. Rassi, I'm not going to question you.
We don't question Doc Rassi.
Yeah.
We never do. We never will. We just try and jump in his mind. And I mean, what I would do, we should just take brain scans of him, because the activity there. I mean, those box meetings must be. I think even the coaches must sort of arrive and sometimes leave going, "Keepers, what are we doing?" Because I think we're so different in the way we think that I think that a lot of people have to adjust to the way the box think about things and sort of the way they plan, which is fun to do and fun to kind of see. My gut says I think that we've got to play horse of the courses. Australia, Joburg, Australia, Cape Town. Cape Town's going to be wet, very likely to be wet, or cold, cooler. You're playing at Ayers Park in now just before spring, end of winter. It's getting a bit warmer here. It's still not quite summer. It's going to be dry. It's going to be warm. Release Mani. And release Grant Williams. You're not having to play a tactical arm wrestle, wet conditions. You are primed for fast-paced running rugby at altitude, where you want to run those Australians.
Mani's going to find that long pass that hits a gap.
And there's cross kicks, and I want to spend 80 minutes running Australia ragged.
Running rugby, man. Nothing better.
And I think we're trying to get there. I think we've seen with Tony Brown and everybody's talking Tony Ball. We're not going away so much from our core concept, but we need to be able to switch gears and add to our game plan. The problem is, how much do we switch? Where is the danger in moving away from the physicality in the forward-dominated game to try to play an expansive game, which can also make us more porous to conceding tries?
It's interesting. I think we've seen a bit of a shift in how we are approaching that physicality, and we saw it like against Italy in both games. The physicality obviously was there, and the Italians were there to match us. But I think it got to the point where, trying to play Tony ball was, what's the word I'm looking for? It didn't really work to the extent where, like, if it came to the breakdown, we were getting dominated there.
Especially that first test.
Yeah, that's like the physicality aspect that we are normally absolutely dominant in. So I'm not sure if Tony ball is has had that negative effect on the books. I could be speaking absolute rubbish, but the balancing act might take away from previous areas where we have been dominant. We're just going to have to keep seeing how it goes.
It's interesting. Rassi, for example, was asked, who's your number 110? And he said, we don't really have a number 110. I said, we've got different 10s for different situations. If we want to play more expansively, for example, then we've got a 10 for that. If we want to play more conservatively and maybe more tactically and kicking for goal, we've got a 10 for that. If you want to sort of play a bit more sort of off the cuff and type of thing, and he basically just described the 3 different fly halves.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be interesting to see. For example, Sasha last year was starting against the All Blacks, and now I think people are sitting there saying he hasn't maybe been quite as good, but I think we've seen the reality of what a 22-year-old brings, and that is inconsistency. He'll do something phenomenal followed by a silly. He is. He's young. He's barely played 2 or 3 seasons of professional rugby, and you've seen that as well. I think people have had to kind of maybe realize that he's a work in progress because of how young he was. Damien Willemse was the same thing. Damien Willemse made a Springbok debut at 19, went to the World Cup at 19 or 20 years old, won the World Cup. But the Damien Willemse we saw 4 years later was a different animal. And it's very interesting now because
we've got Fasti
coming through, and there's so many people who are saying basically, no, they wouldn't pick Damien Willemse, like, he's not as good as Fasti. And I'm like, I understand why people think that, because we didn't see Willemse last year at all. But I'm also like, that oak in the 2023 World Cup
Willemse
was untouchable.
I think, the modern days, or particularly, people are very, very quick to forget.
Yes.
It's very in the moment. Now I see something, I must, instant gratification type of minds. It's TikTok brain.
Literally.
So, people mustn't forget the class that Damien Willemse is. But I think we'll see him in Joburg, Fussy in the wet conditions in Cape Town.
Yeah.
Vice versa, it doesn't matter. They're both class players. I can't say a bad word about Willemse.
Yeah, he's one of my favourite players. But so I think obviously next week we'll have a bit of a team. We can kind of break it down, kind of really get stuck into it. But to sort of start wrapping up, we've got some Currie Cup happening at the moment. Now,
we have to talk about it.
Well, we do actually, we do. So for context, Allister is a Sharks fan. Obviously, I am a diehard Lions fan, and it's been a very interesting Currie Cup so far. Sharks 0 from 2.
Difference of minus 100.
Yeah, no, it's not been good. You've gone with a very young side, lots of under-20s involved. Look, a lot of the teams have gone. For example, you look at the Bulls side; they're the clear favourites because they've got so many senior players. You've got Marvin Ory, playing, and you've got players, that have been around the block or playing. But this weekend, for example, just to go through some of the fixtures, we've got Pumas versus Western Province tomorrow at 3:00, and I want to speak about that in a bit. Bulls versus Pumas at 3:00 on a Saturday. Sharks versus Cheers at 5:10 on Saturday. And Boland versus Lions on Sunday. Let's talk about the Currie Cup, and about not so much the results, but the concept. We cannot be having Currie Cup games on a Friday 3:00 slot. Surely not.
Look, it's the oldest rugby tournament in the country. It carries a lot of caliber.
In the world.
In the world.
Oldest domestic competition in the world.
So it's lost a whole lot of its respect, man. I remember being in primary school on a Saturday evening watching Fourie de Preer and Skalkberger smash into each other in the Currie Cup, man.
Yep.
And it was insane. But it happens when you have such a packed rugby schedule. But that has nothing to do with having a game on a Friday at 3:30.
Yeah. I think that's
play all the games on a Saturday, as it should be, as God intended.
Well, what I'm saying is, you're not going to pack. Look, Tomorrow, if it's at the Greek, was a different story. You're not packing Ellis Park for a Bull Cavaliers game on a Sunday.
No.
You know, and I think
Saturdays for rugby.
correct, and we still know this. But also we still got schoolboy rugby happening. Put those games, take them away from the stadiums. Put those games into schoolboy grounds. Put those games into club grounds.
I see Sharks are doing something this weekend. They're playing at a community ground in KZN.
Yeah.
I think it's a very cool idea.
Yeah, well, the thing is, if you're going to put 5,000 people at Ellis Park, put 5,000 people at Pirates Rugby Club, you know, and make it a...
Lions and Bulls did something like that last year when they played at one of the schools.
Yeah, I was there. We played at Midstream, and it was packed.
Huge success.
We went there late. It was actually a stuff up because we went there late and then realized they couldn't buy booze there because the beer tent didn't have booze. They didn't get the liquor license. And we had to run across the road and grab cans of beer, and it was a disaster, and it was about 4 degrees. But it was packed. It was really, really cool. And it was, the Lions dominated the Bulls, so that always helps. But that was a Friday night at a school, and you pack it out. And this is my thing. The Curry Cup is never going to be the Curry Cup we grew up watching.
That's true. Make it more of a community engaged type of thing.
Yeah, find a way to make the tournament relevant. Yeah. And look, I do think teams need to be better at inverted commas, taking it more seriously. I mean, for example, I don't think what the Sharks are doing, I understand why they're doing it. I don't think it helps the competition because you've got a Bulls that can name the sort of size that they are naming. And yes, you've got the Junior 20s, which are exciting, but I think you need to find a better way of scheduling. And the problem is obviously this is being used as sort of preseason and 2 months rest and stuff like that. But it's difficult, but we've got to try and find a balance. And this is why we've got to try and build our squads so they're much bigger squads. And you've got those depth because...
You wouldn't see this in France, you know?
No, you wouldn't. And I think the problem is, I'm not saying I want to see Sia Khaleesi running out on a Saturday for the Sharks, but there are players who did not play that much rugby for the Sharks.
Where's Jason Jenkins? Where's... Chituka just had his ball time, I understand.
But Emmanuel Chituka didn't play that much this past season.
Where's Masuku, man?
Yeah, let him cook.
Dude, it's just... Yeah, I was listening to Plum and Neil Powell speak the other day about, we want to blood these new youngsters. What good does it do to send them to the sword and getting beaten like that week after week? It doesn't help them. You gotta balance that experience with the youth, and that's the only way you're going to give Oaks the confidence to be better. But anyway, this is not a Sharks podcast, so...
Your dreams of defending the Curry Cup are not looking good. And also, what annoyed me, I think, last year was the fact that we saw the squads start to stack their teams towards the latter stages of the tournament. And I think the Lions, in Nzwala Nkosi was asked, are you going to bring in some bigger players? And there were a couple of players. I mean, Ruan Fenter, I think, ended up playing the final. But it was such a balancing act of... you want to start bringing in some of the other players to give them a bit more of a run. But at the same time, I think, you got to keep the integrity of the competition. You can't parachute Andre Pollard into the Curry Cup final for the Bulls, for example. Yeah. I think they need to be quite strict about the squads you kind of use. If there are injuries, by all means. And the problem is that people are going to sit there saying, no, but but we want to watch the better players. And I agree. But I think we've lost the integrity if the Sharks struggle, win a few games, come fourth, and next thing you know, stack their side for the semi-final, stack their side for the final, win the Curry Cup.
How do you implement a rule like that, though? Like, is it something as simple as if just play a normal regular season game, you qualify to play for the semis?
Yeah, I think you probably have to almost submit squads before the tournament. And then I suppose a bit like a World Cup. And then if there are injuries, if there's an injury and you have to play Sia Masuku in the semi-final, by all means. But I just don't like the fact that these teams will play junior sides, they'll scrape themselves to a quarterfinal, and then all of a sudden, bang, you've got all these big name players coming in. And cool, it makes for good watching in the semi-final and the final. But as a Pumas and as a Griquas and as a Bull and Cavaliers, who are back in the mix and winning games, imagine
is healing. Cavaliers are back in
imagine being there and you scrape yourselves into a semi-final, and then all of a sudden 4 Springboks run out in front of you, and you're going, well, there's levels to the game here.
No, that's not fair. I get it.
So just to sign off, people, we will ask a couple of questions, and there were a couple of comments I didn't get to. So earlier, Tommy Cass was saying he has an Argentinian. It's an incredible depth difference between All Black squad with the Boca squad. Interesting. King Power is saying, who goes to 8 now? Jean-Luc Dupre, Kobus Wiesel, Khaleesi, none are actual 8 men. Yeah, I think that 8-man selection is going to be very interesting next week. Oh, we're going to try and institute a bit of a weekly thing on the show, which is and the reason will be a bit more clearer next week, where hopefully we can launch something. But we're going to have to pick a game. We have to do a bit of a prediction. And so basically, so I'm thinking, I mean, the problem is we've only really got Currie Cup this weekend, which doesn't help. Sharks versus Cheetahs is...
Yeah, 17-0 to the Cheetahs.
Yeah. So I think we're going to have to pick maybe the Bulls versus Pumas as... Maybe the Griquas versus... This is the problem as well.
Lions play.
Boland. So, I mean, in theory, it should be a pretty straightforward win for the Lions. So I'm thinking the closest games here are Griquas, Province, and Bulls versus Pumas. Should we do Griquas?
Province.
Should we do Griquas versus Province?
I mean, they're struggling, but they're just not as much as the Sharks.
Right, so then there we go. So first round one.
In Kimberley,
In Kimberley, round one predictions on Maul and Disorder, the Mad Show. Griquas versus Western Province. I'll let you kick off with the prediction. What are we thinking? What are we going with?
Put me under some pressure here. No, look, Griquas have had a nice start, but, getting put under pressure like they did against Cavaliers last weekend made me doubt them a bit. Province by... Do you want to do an exact score or by...
So because of exactly what we're going to implement, I want an exact score.
An exact score.
An exact score.
Okay, we're going to go Western Province 32, Griquas 28.
So a close game. You're predicting a close game.
Close game.
So, okay, I'll try and be a bit different. I think Western Province are going to hit their straps. I think that they've got a couple of junior blocks in that on the bench this weekend. And I think they showed progression against the Lions last week. So I'm going to go Province 35, Griquas 18.
Okay.
So I'll go with a bit of a pretty big score line there. I think there'll be tries. I think
it was Schmocker a break the line try.
And they do.
Step that arc.
Gershman Weir. Watched him there and then said that entire try was actually. That's the one thing about the Currie Cup. You are completely guaranteed. The hoopers will hoop and the ballers will ball.
Yeah.
If you could, and this is the thing. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, the fact that for years they struggled to get a sponsorship for the Currie Cup. I'm like, my man, you go and clip the best moments and the tries in the Currie Cup. You could sell this to some sheikh in Abu Dhabi as the elite competition of rugby in the world because it is a proper streets won't forget tournament. Some of the tries and moments in the Currie Cup, which you don't get sometimes in the better leagues because it's closer, but you get some proper moments.
That's true. Last year, I mean, even the Griffins were there and they scored some crazy goals. That Griffins Cheetahs game where it was like or something. It was insane.
Yeah, look, I mean, shout out to the Bulldog Cavaliers. They've definitely improved the competition. I mean, unfortunately, last year the Griffins were basically making up numbers.
Yeah.
Cavaliers came in and won their first game and said, "Cool, we're here."
The whipping boy.
No, exactly. Look, I mean, it's a big project. I mean, you've got Louis Schroeder, who's making his debut this weekend. I mean, you've got Ashton Davis. You've got some proper streets won't forget players in that Bulldog Cavaliers side. Yeah, look, you look at the board of the Cavaliers. I mean, Scott Berger's involved, and they're really trying to reinvigorate that whole sort of region. I'm very excited to see that kind of project.
Things we love to see, man.
Because we need to see a competitive Currie Cup, and I'm hoping that the Pumas, Griquas, Boland, for example, they can improve and they can get much better. And the Cheetahs, for example. Look, again, the biggest thing is for them is finding competitions for them to play in. If we had the money, imagine having the Cheetahs playing Super Rugby, for example.
Yeah.
Imagine Boland
they've got like
play Super Rugby.
Cup.
It's not the same. That's not the same. And that's the thing. That's what they're saying. They're saying they just don't play enough rugby. The Cheetahs play in the Challenge Cup. But they go play in Currie Cup now, and then all of a sudden... That's the thing. They play Currie Cup. They don't play any rugby. Then they've got their Toyota Challenge in the end of the year, which they usually is a pre-season for the EPCR. But they go from no rugby to then going and playing on Lyon.
Mm-hmm. But France has spoken about that, and that's a big issue to keep folks, excited for rugby.
And to keep folks. If you play with once a career, why would you have the Cheetahs?
Isn't Tokoza Makaza going to stay for long?
Yeah, I don't see how he waits. He lasts more than a year or two. To be honest, I mean, good signing, but that signing was done before he got the Springbok call up. If he was not contracted when he got that Springbok call up, there would have been a bit of a race for his signature. But people, that's all much time we've got going. So thank you very much, everybody, for jumping on and watching the first iteration of Maul and Disorder. We'll be back next week, Thursday, hopefully a 3-man panel, and we're going to be breaking down the Bok lineup. We're breaking down the Australian lineup as well as the Argentina and New Zealand lineup. We'll have bigger predictions for the Rugby Championship, and hopefully we'll have a couple of new segments to introduce alongside a new platform that we're currently working on in the background. If you're new to the channel, please make sure you do subscribe, smash a like on the video, show your support. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully we'll see you very soon.
Absolute pleasure, Steve. Thank you, man.
And to everybody else, we'll see you guys over the next few days. Our coverage this weekend will continue. And as usual, we'll be going balls to the walls next week with Springbok content from Monday through to Friday, press conferences, training, live shows, the whole works, all on Forever Sports. So make sure you subscribe. Turn your notifications on as well. And we'll see you guys all next time. Thanks.